All right, welcome in. Happy St. Patrick's Day. This is Green, I swear. And while the internet, social media complains that the 49ers are not signing mediocre edge rushers who wouldn't fit into their larger current situation and plan, guys like Azeez Ojulari, guys like Josh Uche, while that happens, I think that I've cracked the code of the 49ers strategy moving forward. This is up on the San Francisco Standard headline. What the heck are the 49ers doing? Well, that's what people have been asking me over the course of the past week, ever since free agency opened. A look at what the Rams did in 2023 is indeed the answer. I know that I've been saying this for a while, but there is even more revelatory information if you actually look at the details of the Rams strategy from 2023. And it is truly eye-opening. I was able to write 2,000 words on this up on the San Francisco Standard. The link is in the description. Go check out the article because I feel that people are just ignorant of the actual details of the Rams model from 2023 that has led them to a very good place and has inspired other teams around the league, not just the 49ers, but the Rams have their disciples at executive levels around the NFL. That includes James Gladstone, the new GM, the really young-looking GM of Jacksonville. The Jaguars are adopting exactly what worked for the Rams in 2023. So let's discuss this because I think that this is information that will help you understand why the 49ers are not aggressively pursuing guys like Azeez Ojulari, who had only 22 pressures in 298 pass rushing snaps this past season. Why they're not pursuing guys like Josh Uche, who had 5 sacks over the course of the past 2 seasons. I mean, these are not players who are really moving the needle. I will say that it seems that people fall in love with names, but they don't watch the tape, and then they're ignorant of the larger structure within which the 49ers are operating. And the strategy sometimes is hard to understand, hard to explain, because everybody gets all caught up in the free agent frenzy, and they want big names here, big names there, but they're not thinking in terms of the larger strategy. And the larger strategy is not going to be something that is deciphered over the course of one afternoon in free agency or even 2 weeks in free agency if that team's plans are more heavily based on the NFL draft. And it was no secret that the 49ers were going to try to build most of their team, most of the openings, try to fill most of their openings through the draft with the 11 picks this year. But what I learned through looking at the Rams is that this might exclusively be replenished through the draft from here on out for the 49ers. And that's what people are having a hard time wrapping their heads around. But listen to some of the facts from the Rams 2023 roster renovation. And as background, remember that the Rams were coming off of a 5-12 season, which was a year removed from their Super Bowl season. So the Rams in 2021 went 12-5, won the Super Bowl. In 2022, they went 5-12, a total flameout. Very similar to the 49ers, who went to the Super Bowl but didn't win it in 2023. That was a 12-5 season. Then they went 6-11 last year. Both of these football teams completely scrapped inefficient portions of their rosters. You can see here, LA is at the top, just highlighted them. The 49ers are at the bottom. So for the Rams, they traded or released Jalen Ramsey, Allen Robinson, Leonard Floyd. That's a name that should be familiar because he's also on the 49ers portion of this list. Ashawn Robinson and Greg Gaines, a pair of defensive tackles. Bobby Wagner, Taylor Rapp, and Nick Scott, a pair of safeties. And then a couple specialists. On the 49ers side, they saw a long list of departures, have seen a long list of departures, either through release or free agency. Floyd is on that list, so is Charvarius Ward, Deebo Samuel, Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, Aaron Banks, and Tabor Pepper, the long snapper who has been released and replaced by John Weeks, a new long snapper. Anyway, that's the part of the renovation process for both of these teams that opened up a lot of space. And obviously for the 49ers, it was spurred on by a lack of performance in 2024. The 49ers' old strategy ran out of gas. The old strategy was to try to cram in a Super Bowl win by signing veterans to short deals to try to augment a roster that was becoming more and more fatigued, more and more beaten up over the course of the 20-game seasons that it was playing. In these 4 performance metrics, the 49ers performed very poorly. Their run defense was bad, number 21. Their short yardage run efficiency on offense was terrible, number 31. Their average separation on offense was really bad, number 32. And their special teams was putrid, number 32. So when the old strategy ran out of gas, we saw the 49ers, just like the Rams, when their old strategy ran out of gas in 2022, make big-time cuts. Now, we're in the middle of the entire process for the 49ers. We can look at the 2023 Rams as a team that has already gone through the whole process and come out better for it because they've gone 10-7 into the playoffs in both of the last 2 seasons, and they've been improving. So what's next? After the 49ers have torn down the old strategy and are moving to the old strategy and are moving to the new strategy, what is next for San Francisco? Well, that's where I come to the Rams 2023 draft class. Now, this, for those of you who follow the draft and follow how rosters are built, this is downright shocking. This is something I didn't realize. I probably should have known this back in 2023. I knew that the Rams were going big youth movement. I knew that they were going with a lot of rookies. I know that they had a big draft class. All 14 of the Rams draftees made their 53-man roster in 2023. Again, all 14 made it. That had only happened once before in NFL history for a team that finished 1-15. But the Rams saw all 14 of their draft picks make it, and then they went 10-7 and nearly beat the Detroit Lions in the playoffs. They lost on the road to the same Lions team that was up 17 against the 49ers a couple weeks later in the NFC Championship game. So that's one staggering stat. Just wrap your head around the fact that all 14 made it onto the 53. In a typical year for a winning team, you're happy if 5 of your draftees make it onto the 53-man roster. The Rams saw all 14 make it, and then they finished 10-7. That should be applauded. And if you're a 49ers fan, seeing an article like this, the 49ers are following the Rams formula, you should be excited that the 49ers are following the Rams formula because this is a formula that obviously worked for LA. On top of the 14 draftees making the roster for LA, they had 36 rookies on the 90-man roster to begin 2023 training camp. I hope that you realize how many rookies that is. Over a third of the 90-man roster to begin camp for the Rams was rookies. Like, this is absolutely absurd. And again, the only reason that we're talking about it right now is because it worked for the Rams. That's the only reason that the 49ers are pursuing a similar strategy. And, the parallel here is the 49ers have the most 2025 draft picks in the NFL. 11. They have 4 in the top 100. But as we talk about implementing this in San Francisco, we have to begin with the biggest philosophical key behind all of it. And this is what the Rams did. They embraced a lower floor to reach a higher ceiling. And by that, I mean they gave the fast lane to the roster to the rookies. They made sure that the players on the cost-controlled deals who were younger, who were healthier, who had more potential upside would not be blocked in their developmental NFL journey by mediocre veterans. I mean, it's blunt when I put it that way, but that is what the Rams insisted on doing in 2023. And I think that's what the 49ers are doing here in 2025. Yes, they released Malik Collins. They released Javon Hargrave. They released Leonard Floyd, just like the Rams did. They literally released Leonard Floyd in 2023 because they see those players as part of the problem that led to these results. 49ers especially in run defense, number 29 in run defense. That is the one performance metric that was just unacceptable from the defense last year. So the 49ers have decided to move on from veterans who contributed to that low ranking, who might have been fine pass rushers, but were not good run defenders. And they have said very, I think, loudly through their inactivity so far in free agency that they want to make sure they stock up on youngsters who can turn these performance metrics around. And right now I'm talking specifically about the defense. So it's that first number 29 metric. The Rams thought the very same thing. I think that, a lot of the outdated thinking in terms of NFL roster building centers on the idea that you just have to have people on the roster at all times of the year, even if you're not playing a game on March 17th. It's St. Patrick's Day today, right? And the 49ers aren't going to play until something like probably September 7th, September 8th. We're still a good 6 months away. We're literally a half year away from the 49ers' first 2025 game. They don't have to have the roster completed right now. In fact, if you look at how to build a roster in the NFL, there are going to be two primary player acquisition windows in the offseason. The first is free agency, and the second is the NFL draft. So compare it to a meal at a restaurant. You sit down, you order your appetizer, and then you have your main course. And then after that, you have dessert. And then the dessert, you only eat the dessert or order the dessert if you have room for it. So free agency is the appetizer course. The main course, very clearly for the 49ers, who have the most 2025 draft picks in the NFL, that's the meal. So to judge what the 49ers have done right now while ignoring the fact that they haven't even gotten to the main course yet, that's like leaving a restaurant a review after the appetizer, even if you ordered a light appetizer and you know that the main course is going to have a chance to be really good. It's like leaving the review on Yelp or on Google before the main course even shows up. And you know that the main course isn't coming until about a month from now in the NFL draft. This whole build process for the 49ers is so clearly going to be reliant on the NFL draft that it's foolish to be looking at the current state of the team right now as if the 49ers are going to be playing a game in 2 days. Anyway, back to this. Embrace a lower floor to reach a higher ceiling. That's exactly what the Rams did. The way that we see it right now with the defensive line, and these graphics, by the way, look who got credit for these graphics. That is Lombardi herself. She made these beautiful looks at the Rams defensive line and the 49ers defensive line in 2024. You want more shading in the middle, at least according to the theory that both of these teams are subscribing to. That means that your player was acquired through the draft process. The 2024 Rams defensive line was mainly acquired through the draft process. And the recent draft process, if we zoom in, Byron Young came in 2023. Jared Verse came in 2024. Brennan Jackson, 2024 draft. Nick Hampton, 2023 draft. So you look at their edge rushers, and four of them, including the guys with the most snaps at the edge rusher position, Byron Young and Jared Verse, 936 and 933 snaps between those two players. Four of them came from the last two drafts. 4 draft picks on edge rushers just over the past 2 years for the Rams. And obviously it worked out, especially with Byron Young and Jared Verse. If you go to their defensive tackles, Kobe Turner, 2023 draft. Braden Fisk, 2024 draft. Bobby Brown III, he's been with the team a little bit longer. That was the 2021 draft. Tyler Davis, 2024 draft. Then you have DeJuan Johnson, 2023 draft, 155 snaps. That's not nothing. So past 2 drafts produced 4 defensive tackles for the Rams. Wrap your head around that. The past 2 drafts for the Rams have produced 8 defensive linemen. And that's not even including the drafts that came before that. So the Rams very successfully built the defensive line that we saw in 2024 4 through the NFL draft. Meanwhile, we can look at the 49ers. And this was the 2024 version, obviously, of San Francisco. You see all the gold shading on acquisition method for the Rams. Look how little shading there is for the 49ers on their side. Floyd, free agent. Gross Matos, free agent. Okawanu, free agent. Malik Collins, acquired via trade. Jordan Elliott, free agent. Javon Hargrave, acquired via free agency. For San Francisco, the draftees who played a relatively significant role on this defensive line are Nick Bosa, but he was drafted way back in 2019. It's not like that was recent. Robert Beal, a 5th rounder, but only 149 snaps. It's not nothing, but it's not a lot. Evan Anderson, undrafted free agent. That was a good find for the 49ers. Good rookie value. Kalia Davis, 2022 draft, 6th round pick, 259 snaps. Kevin Givens, he's been around for a while. He was a UDFA back in 2023. So you could see the markedly different construction of the Rams and the 49ers this past season. Well, for San Francisco, it is out with the old, in with the new. I say that the old strategy, which is trying to cram in a Super Bowl with veterans who are on the wrong side of 30, who weren't delivering good run defense, that strategy has run out of gas. We call that tired. This, from the Rams, we call it wired. From tired to wired. Draftees. That's what the 49ers have to do. Now, the exact way of shepherding these draftees into the mix is where this Rams formula needs to be studied. So let's go to a Rams executive who had been with the team throughout the entirety of the McVay era, who really helped spearhead this plan, because he's now in Jacksonville, and that is James Gladstone. Gladstone was asked about empty defensive line spots on Jacksonville's roster, and he answered in a way that was tremendously forthright and evocative of what the Rams did while he was there under Les Snead. Turns out that James Gladstone's going to do the same thing in Jacksonville, and it looks like the 49ers are doing the same exact thing in San Francisco.
Evaluate, you guys didn't address defensive line, edge, in terms of your approach of what is already here and maybe what still needs to be added to the roster on those positions.
Yeah, we got 10 picks in this year's draft. We're going to have some spots that are actually open for them to insert. So, if you add a veteran at this point, could be just standing in the way. We're going to allow these rookies to, get a chance to get out on the field and help us this coming fall.
There you have it. Straight from the horse's mouth. James Gladstone was with those Rams teams. So now he's taking the same philosophy to Jacksonville, where he's opening the door for this rookie D-line infusion. And you have to remember that the 2025 draft is going to be potentially historically good along the defensive line. So it's no accident that the Jaguars would like to emulate the model that worked so well with LA in a year that is talent rich in the NFL draft at that defensive line position. Jacksonville has 10 picks. The 49ers have even more. They have 11. And with every mediocre edge rusher that passes to another team, so you've seen Ojulari now, and you see Josh Uche both signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. When each one of those guys goes somewhere else in the 49ers, it becomes more and more obvious that the 49ers are leaving the highway open for drafted pass rushers to come in and do what they did with the Rams over the course of the past couple seasons. And the building process in LA has been nothing short of remarkable. Again, 14 of 14 draftees making the roster. And then if you fast forward to 2024, they had a 14-player draft class in 2023 and then a 10-player draft class in 2024. So that's 24 total draftees. 19 of those 24 made the 2024 roster this past year. That is an 80% success rate. And for 14 of them, for more than half of them, that was their second year in the NFL already. So sometimes guys don't even, make it into the second year. The fact they had an 80% success rate with the entire group of two classes make the 53-man roster, and not on a bad team, on a team that was coming off a 10-7 season, that was about to go 10-7 again and beat the Minnesota Vikings very badly in the playoffs. Boy, that if that's not something to emulate, I don't know what is. So that's what I wrote about up on the San Francisco Standard. The 49ers are not going to be adding mediocre defensive linemen, especially at a cost that would incentivize them to shut the door on rookies. The Rams, who had 36 rookies to begin 2023 camp to modernize their roster, who had those 14 draftees make the team and who are now seeing really good results from that defensive line, the Rams definitely create the model that the 49ers are following right now. And you know what's crazy is when I studied this deeply, and that's why you should go check out the piece up on the Standard. Some of the rhetoric from John Lynch is completely evocative of what the Rams were saying 2 years ago. We'll take a look at some of the words here from Les Snead, who's the Rams general manager. So in his first media availability following the 2022 5-12 season, Les Snead said, from the macro standpoint, there's going to be an element where we're going to have to not press the gas as much, pay a little bit of the debt that we've accumulated. We've heard John Lynch talk about restraining cash spend for the 49ers, moving to a more efficient model. This is a young man's league. The draft is the most efficient way to build a football team. It's not just the Rams who have succeeded with this. Throughout the course of time, it has been proven that the NFL draft is the most effective lifeblood of positive, sustainable football in the NFL. Even more, this is Kevin Demoff, who is the Rams president. President Kevin Demoff wrote a letter to season ticket holders in that 2023 offseason saying that the Rams had taken all of their salary cap pain in 2023 after going all in, just like the 49ers, except the Rams went even further and they were in definite salary cap hell. The 49ers are simply in a spot where they have to repair some of the very poor play that we've seen in graphics like this one. So the 49ers are not in cap hell, but they're definitely in a spot where they want to get better cash ROI. But look what Demoff wrote to the season ticket holders. I'll highlight it here. During the trade deadline this past year, it was clear that in a new era where teams were willing to be as aggressive as we were, that we had neither the draft capital nor the salary cap space to win trade conversations and be able to take on top players at the salaries they would command. The Rams realized that a house cleaning was necessary, that they had to rebuild around some core pillars. And guess exactly what the 49ers are doing this offseason. They are cleaning house financially, and they're rebuilding around core pillars. Now, the 49ers have more core pillars than the Rams did in 2023. For LA, it was Matthew Stafford, it was Cooper Kupp, and it was Aaron Donald. Two of those guys are now gone from the Rams. Gives you an idea of how quickly things change in the NFL. Only Stafford remains of the core pillars around whom the team built things in 2023. 49ers have more core pillars. They've got Brock Purdy. They have Christian McCaffrey. Kyle Juszczyk is back. He is officially a core pillar for the 49ers. Arguably Brandon Ayuk, although I think he needs to re-earn that status. George Kittle, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and Deommodore Lenoir. Malik Mustafa, one more year of good play. He'll earn his status as a core pillar. But as you can see, San Francisco has a more robust existing unit than the Rams did in 2023, which should actually give them some optimism heading through this renovation. But more of this. I love the fact that we have rhetoric that's very similar. John Lynch, remember, he talked about no guarantees at the NFL Combine when people asked him about Brock Purdy's contract and the 49ers roster. He was very non-committal. Les Snead 2 years ago said all things are in play. It's almost like the 49ers went back and they studied everything about this Rams renovation 2 seasons ago because it's been so effective. And they studied everything down to the media messaging from Les Snead and Kevin Demoff, because we're hearing the same stuff come from the 49ers brass this offseason, particularly John Lynch, who's been talking about reining back on cash spend, greater financial efficiency. It's almost like the 49ers were preparing everybody for this rein back, because it's not easy for NFL fans to understand at this time of the year when other teams are overpaying for veterans left and right. There wasn't a whole lot of plus premium talent in free agency this year, and you're seeing teams pay through the ears for it. It could be hard for NFL fans to see their players leaving, like the pre-existing players for these NFL teams, while not signing guys to directly replace them, because the draft and free agency are like 6 weeks apart. So if a team's strategy is to replenish through the draft, free agency is going to be really tough on the fans, because you're going to see all the minuses without any of the pluses, right? You're going to see all the negative, the attrition, without the actual rebuilding, without the new materials coming in. There's going to be this rough month of March and a rough month of April before the NFL draft and the renewed hope and the new seeds are planted for the football team. And I think that the Rams, they hardly signed anybody in that 2023 offseason. To have 36 rookies on the team to begin training camp means that you're just adding through the draft and undrafted free agency. That's what they did. One of the players they did actually sign was Demarcus Robinson. And, you know, when we like to talk about parallels between the 49ers and the Rams, Demarcus Robinson is a player that San Francisco has also added this offseason. So you just sit back and you say, wow. You know, you look at it and I kind of joke, I cracked the code. But in a way, like when I see all this complaining after every single mediocre free agency signing with another team, and I say, why didn't the 49ers pay $5 million for him? Why didn't they pay $4 million for this guy? Well, it's because there's a larger strategy at play. You can question the strategy all you want, but at least acknowledge that it exists. And I guess that, you know, we have to go through a little bit of an education session here. I had to write a 2,000-word article about it. The link is in the description. I think it's must-read stuff so you understand the lens of this offseason. And at the end of the day, it is the philosophy of embracing a lower initial floor to reach a higher ceiling. In the case of the Rams, this is really interesting. Their defense obviously took a step back after it lost Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd, a lot of those pieces, but it was a very temporary step back. 2024, this past year, the Rams, for 3 months of the season, ranked number 29 in defensive EPA. And then this entire plan blossomed in real time. Over the final month of the season, unfortunately for the 49ers, right around the time the Rams came in on that Thursday night game. But over the final month of the season and the postseason, the Rams defense ranked number 5. So all the investment that we saw from LA, this is the defensive line version of the investment. This is from Margot. Great job from her to illustrate this. You can see that there's some green in the grading chart for the Rams, but it got way, way better than just this over the final 5 games. So their willingness to embrace that lower floor early on, realizing that, hey, okay, some of these rookies, they're going to need some developmental time. Maybe all of them are going to need some developmental time. But once this blossoms, and they believe that it would because they drafted well, the Rams really enjoyed the dividends. Now, what does this all mean in terms of the larger roster? Well, this is why I said, what the heck is SF doing opposite Brock Purdy in the title? This is a bet on Brock Purdy, and this is a bet on the 49ers offense. Just like the Rams were betting on Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, and then they got the really quick help from Puka Nacua. Also a bet on Sean McVay on LA's end, so a bet on Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy. We can see right now that the 49ers defense is going to be very reliant on young players. Their goal was to get younger. They will get younger, because they have to. They're backed into a corner now. This very promising NFL draft is their ticket for 2025. But anybody who follows football knows that if you enter a season with a rookie-dominated defense, that defense probably is not going to be the strength of your team. It's not going to be the locomotive that pulls the train along, especially very early on. So the 49ers understand that the offense is going to have to be the leader of this football team. They're going to have, in all likelihood, a quarterback with a newly minted mega deal when 2025 begins. So I think that it's symbolically fitting, if that's indeed how this offseason progresses, that the 49ers are built to proceed into 2025 this way, because they are handing the torch over to Brock Purdy to be their fixture at the franchise quarterback position. They have continued pouring resources into the offense. We saw them sign both Luke Farrell and Kyle Juszczyk to help improve that running offense this offseason. I think it's symbolically fitting that it's the offense that's going to be counted on to shepherd the 49ers through the 2025 season until the defense figures it out. And it probably will take the defense some time to figure it out. They really wanted Dre Greenlaw back. They couldn't get Greenlaw back. He signed with the Broncos, and this entire defensive line, well, last year was not good around Nick Bosa. It's a whole lot of yellow and just red, pink, yellow, and red near Bosa's score of 91. You can see here, this entire defensive line is going to look really, really different in 2025. So the offense and the special teams are going to have to pick up a lot of slack for the 49ers. That's how a plan that embraces an early lower floor, especially from its defense, to reach a higher ceiling has to work, because to get from the floor to the ceiling is not going to be an overnight journey. For the Rams, they didn't really truly blossom on the defensive side of the ball until the 2024 season, and it wasn't until December of 2024. But they still were able to win those 10 games in 2023, still were able to go to the postseason in 2024, beat the Minnesota Vikings, and then almost beat the Philadelphia Eagles, who were the eventual Super Bowl champions. So it's, I also would have to say that the Rams did this with an aging Matthew Stafford, who's been middle of the pack in terms of efficiency in the NFL ever since 2021. Even he's been number 18 in a lot of these composite metrics since 2021. So Stafford over 22, 23, and 24 has not been great for the Rams. He's an older quarterback. They, had to figure out a way to renegotiate the contract over the course of this offseason. The 49ers have a cheat code in Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey returning. Purdy's lowest efficiency, and this is going to upset some people, but I don't care because these are the facts. His lowest efficiency has been number 7 in QBR, and that was last year with everything crumbling around him. So Purdy at this stage of his career is a much more effective quarterback than Matthew Stafford. And San Francisco has him a rising stock, whereas the Rams were able to do what they did with a declining older stock in Stafford. That's the way the 49ers are going to try to absorb this defensive youth movement and the growing pains that might come with it. It all comes back to the theory, and this is not just a theory, this is just, football wisdom, football truth, but it all comes back to the core pieces philosophy. And I've highlighted the 49ers core pieces in yellow, from Purdy to McCaffrey to Bosa to Warner to Lenore. These are the guys that you keep on the team, that you treat as your centerpieces that truly move the needle. And then you fill in around those guys on a cost-controlled basis. Obviously, the most work the 49ers need to do is along the defensive interior. The way that you determine who belongs in that A-list core and who doesn't is by looking at performance. This is a merit-based thing for the 49ers. And the truth is, the old strategy ran out of gas. So the 49ers have looked long and hard at what failed for this team in 2024. This is stuff that I've talked about repeatedly: the run defense, the short yardage run offense, the average separation, and the special teams. And every one of their determinations, including who is classified as a core piece of the football team, who they're going to sign, and who they're going to draft, every one of those determinations is going to be tied into how they can improve these 4 performance pillars that failed so miserably in 2024. That's how you get better immediately. And that's how you have to logically think of the moving pieces this offseason, especially if you have such a long wait between now and when the NFL draft happens. It is not the most intuitive or short-term reward kind of strategy that the 49ers are employing or that the Rams employed in 2023. But long-term gain doesn't always come from the short-term gratification. Those two paths are often different. And I think that so much of the discourse right now is focused on short-term gratification. The people just want the 49ers to sign names that they recognize. I recognize the name Azeez Ojulari. I want the 49ers to sign him. I recognize the name Josh Uche. Like those two guys' names sound cool. I want the 49ers to sign those players. And it's like, guys, watch the tape here. And also, aside from just watching the tape, consider fit. The Philadelphia Eagles have a really, really developed and damn good defensive line. We saw that in the Super Bowl. They can afford to take on a project like Ojulari, somebody who's shown a little bit of potential, but boy, he's just been hurt a lot. And like I said, he managed 22 pressures and about 300 pass rushing snaps. That's not a lot. They can manage to take somebody who they feel has some upside onto their defensive line because you've got so many other guys just wreaking havoc, like Jalen Carter on the inside, Nolan Smith on one of the edges. And you could bring Ojulari in on a rotational basis and see what he has. If he flames out, no big deal. If you're the Eagles, you've already built that defensive line through the draft. You've already made this a robust unit. So now you could see if other pieces can take advantage of the fact that they're not going to be blocked as heavily because people are so worried about your established stars. So you can bring in guys like Uche, who only has 5 sacks over 2 seasons. You can bring in guys like Ojulari, and those could be really good acquisitions for you because they fit your current structure. But the 49ers are in a completely different position. Their defensive line is far behind where the Eagles are right now. The 49ers have to rebuild this from the ground up. And that means they need, durable pieces, but they need pieces with real ceiling that allows them to refill, I think like 2,000 snaps is what the 49ers are going to have to refill because the veterans who were bringing some of those snaps last year were not doing so on a play effective basis. And the proof of that lies in the pudding of the 49ers statistical performance pillars. So Eagles can afford short-term additions of veterans who are essentially just like icing on the cake. 49ers need the cake itself. Like the 49ers need to bake something really nice here on the defensive side of the ball, especially along the defensive line. And the only way that you do that is if you go to the supermarket and you get good ingredients and you start this from scratch, which is what San Francisco is planning to do through the NFL draft. So what are the 49ers are doing? A hard look at the Rams does hold the answer. In the headline, we say it may hold the answer. I'm essentially certain that it does hold the answer. Again, the Rams, what they did in 2023, I mean, I think people need to study the details because if you're ignorant of these details, you will not realize just how aggressive the Rams' actions were. 14 of 14 draftees made the 53-man roster. 36 rookies were on the team to begin camp. They made sure that these rookies, especially the 14 draftees, had the open pathway to develop. They made sure that there weren't going to be mediocre veterans standing in their way because that would have limited the Rams' ceiling. The 49ers don't want to limit their ceiling either. And I think this is a really forward-thinking way of looking at the process. You have to understand that what San Francisco did last year simply did not work. The 49ers were bad in that 2024 season. So now they're looking to fix it. Now they're looking to, the house and the construction analogy is something that I used in the piece because Les Snead has used it, and I think the 49ers would use it as well. Les Snead was adamant about not calling it a rebuild for the Rams in 2023 because they were still keeping some of the core pillars. Rebuild would be tearing down all of the pillars and just starting the construction all over again. A renovation is different because the pillars stay there, but the floor has caved in, and the walls are cracked, and the windows are shattered, and the paint is chipped around the house. That's a renovation. So you love the structure, but you hate the damage that's been done to it, and the NFL inflicts wear and tear on everybody and every team. So in a renovation, you say, okay, we're going to keep some of the foundational pillars. For the 49ers, those foundational pillars are these guys, highlighted in yellow, and then you fix everything around it. And the Rams were validated in their verbiage by the fact that they were able to turn the team around so quickly from 5-12 in 2022 to the 12-5 to the 10-7 finish in 2023. It definitely wasn't a rebuild. It was a successful renovation. And now the 49ers are going to try to do the same. So anyway, I cracked the code, and you should read all about it. It is up on the San Francisco Standard. Your support would mean a lot. It always means a ton. The article is linked in the description. If you're on X, then I've tweeted a lot about it today. I had a whole tweet thread today about the 49ers' 4 foundational deficiencies last year, the statistical deficiencies. I talked about that. So make sure you do look at that. This is the first time that we have been able to include these types of graphics in the article as well. Look, we even have pie chart divisions. This is actually really fascinating. The 49ers are at the left. Offense is blue. Defense is red. That is the cap dedicated to both sides of the ball. 49ers about 50-50. That is changing, though. Look at the Rams on the right. The Rams, it's almost 75% of their spending is going to the offense. Their defense was the cheapest in football last year. And that is because the draft is a cost-controlled way of doing business. I would expect the 49ers to go into that direction. And this is just an illustration of the fact that money spent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, does not necessarily translate to quality play. Sometimes you need that hunger on defense. Sometimes you need that youth on defense. And I think maybe all the time you need the hunger and youth on defense. A lot of people think that throwing money at the problem is what's going to work best. And that has never been the case, especially over the long run in the NFL. It's been about finding those hungry draftees in this young man's league. Maybe when you're trying to knock on the door of a title and you need one more or two more pieces, does that work? Does that push you over the top? And I know that's what the 49ers had been trying to do. But when it failed so abjectly over the course of this 2024 season that wrapped up a couple months ago, you have to go back to the drawing board. You have to renovate. And that is what the 49ers are doing. So go ahead and check it out. It's up on the Standard. It's time for me to go eat. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Hope you're wearing your green. We will see you soon.